think I remember getting a few beers there. Yeah, for sure.
It's all on camera. This is all recorded.
Yeah, I know.
He did, though, over the course of the summer and the back end of last year, then become Kevin from the Harry Enfield.
It happens to them all.
Exactly.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. We've got 3 different time zones here, and so Guy is based in Madrid, Ben is in New York, and thank you, Ben, for correcting my mistake with daylight savings in the US.
I don't really remember. There weren't that many, I don't think, when I started at Radley, but I don't know if there were I think we were about 120 boys a year, if I remember correctly. And I don't know, I would think there were a maximum of 5 places a year that probably had any kind of support. Well, let's put it this way, it's a much more inclusive place now than it used to be.
It might interest you now to know that 103 boys currently at Radley of about 735 are here on some form of funded place.
Yeah.
And that's not, that's not all fully funded. That's everything from a very small amount of support right the way up to a fully funded place. So that equates to about 14% of boys.
And I often say this, boys on a sofa in here being interviewed, if they're great for Radley and Radley is great for them, I sort of don't want money to get in the way of them coming, if that's possible. And that's the way to think about it.
Very much I remember sort of being aware of scholarships, merit-based scholarships, and there being academic ones, all-round ones, music, arts, I'm sure a couple of others. And I think that was quite recognized by the other boys. But I think when it came to bursaries and funded places and things based on those who might not be able to afford to come in the first place, I think that was, it may have been, I'm not sure kind of where bursaries and funded places was at really at the time, and that's why I'm kind of so excited that Radley has really kind of beefed up in that area, because it's such an important thing. And I think given the resources and the opportunities that Radley offers to help those who otherwise might not be able to afford it is fantastic.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because in some ways, for it to be not known about or talked about is some ways quite a good thing.
Yeah.
Because you sort of don't want a big badge, I'm on a funded place, sort of like on the forehead of any boy. And very much that's not the case. It's always been there in our DNA, but actually it's much more strategically central to how we broaden the base of the intake for the benefit of everybody, actually. Having
the experience of meeting and studying and being alongside people from all sorts of different backgrounds, all around the UK and further afield, even when I remember some of my classmates, like it opens your eyes up, because I remember coming to Radley as a wide-eyed little kid, and having been to one specific prep school in one small part of the country, with a lot of people that looked like me and had gone to schools like me and gone to and to have the chance to kind of broaden that a little bit, and for Radley to take a real focus on broadening that experience, bringing kids together from all sorts of different backgrounds, I think is so critical. And it set me up well for then throwing myself into going to a university that's 3,000 miles away in a different country, to a state I'd never been to before. And that, being aware of people having different experiences and being from different places is critical to succeed when you're kind of thrown in like that. And that happens multiple times in your life. So that's an important thing for kids to be set up with.
I find it really interesting, the impact that the boys who come at 16 have, because actually in some ways boys who come at 16 have already formed their characters and their attitudes, and they've had more experience, and they've grown up in different contexts. So sometimes they make a bigger impact, ironically, in 2 years than other boys might in 5, because they're themselves. And we've had some fantastic examples of that in recent years. At the other end, you've got 11-year-olds who, if we didn't find an opportunity for them perhaps to have help in years 7 and 8 at a prep school, we partner with prep schools to help them with that. For those boys, if they didn't have that opportunity, they wouldn't be able to cope with the pace of what we're at 13, but we just sort of see some raw potential, either academically or in other area.
when I was at Radley, I think was focused more on making sure that the facilities at the school were opened up to members of the local community, that there was a time when they could use them, and it wasn't just a privileged ground of people who could afford to send their kids to Radley.
There's a slight danger of Radley being a bubble, isn't there, separated from the rest of the world. But I'm sure there's always been an attempt to see the place as an open place to some degree. But in our latest strategic thinking, as you may have seen, partnership is absolutely the centre of what we're trying to do.
I was just chatting to an old university friend of mine, probably a couple of months ago now, and she moved to Oxford a few years ago. And I found out that her youngest son, they live in North Oxford, and he comes down and sings in the choir once a week. And so, you know, just things like that I think are great.
We still wear gowns, we still have chapel, all the traditions are still there, but I think the culture of the place, I hope, is more outward looking.
Impact with the community was, I didn't have that much, but it was very memorable and had a lot of, I guess on reflection, it did have a lot of impact, whether it was doing like community service for the Radley church and meeting some of the people there. I played cricket with the local Radley team. Is that kind of interaction that was really critical. So I'll say that as well in terms of, you know, sort of interacting with the local community and getting out of sort of the Radley campus.
We just need to give people an education that fits the modern world. And if you're only being educated with people from a small segment of British society, well, you're not really setting them up well enough then for the world as it is today.
When I looked at funded places, like, made me very impressed by how Radley had gone about it was having, like, I think it's the 11 plus, 13 plus and 16 plus, like really giving, you know, it's not just kind of a one and done situation where you're like, oh, you know, at a certain age, they give it the best they got. If they don't get it, they're kind of on their way. Like, it seems like Radley is making a real concerted effort to bring kids in who at various points in the paths of their lives to really help them. Like, it doesn't seem like you're paying lip service to doing this.
Places like Radley can be relatively elitist institutions, but they shouldn't be elitist institutions for financial reasons. And there were two things. First of all, the passing of Warden Silk, who was my warden, was quite a big deal for me. He was an exemplary leader and a very nice man as well. He was the warden, but, you know, even going back, 35 years, when the distance between teachers and students, I'm sure, was significantly greater than what it is today. Even then, he was still a very nice man. You could see he was a very caring man. I think I was also funded places. There was one program that particularly caught my attention, although I didn't decide to donate to that in the end. Was the program that you run for military families who've lost their fathers and giving them financial support. So that particularly caught my eye, and that would have been probably maybe a year or two before Warden Silk passed away. It was never in doubt that at some stage I would give back. It's just the
right moment, yeah.
The right moment.
And it's I mean, what you just said about Dennis in particular is very much, you know, a lot of people have said the same thing, which, I mean, says something amazing about Dennis, but it also says something amazing about Radley, I think, in the sense there is that it's a place that engenders that sort of loyalty. And as Ben said, actually, I think that sort of sense of recognition that the school does something for the boys, and then they think later, actually, you know, it was a key moment. But it's lovely to hear those stories.
I think it already there, you were aware it was a privilege to be there, but I don't know if you can really be aware of how much of a privilege it is to be there until you've been away.
You know, I had a great time, but I kind of like was so sort of just, you know, hit the ground running that I don't think I had enough time when I was there to kind of realize just how lucky I was, and taking a walk around and seeing, like, you know, the new art area, you know, other sort of parts of Radley that have been built up. I saw, I think, the beginnings of the extension to the chapel happening or stuff like that, and Radley has these incredible resources. It's a very special place, and trying to maximize how those resources help boys, and by extension, like the broader world around Radley, is what makes it such a special place.
Everywhere I've gone after Radley, the inclusiveness of church has just been so much lower than at Radley. And so, well, it was a part, you know, was it, you go to chapel 5 days a week, 4 days a week, and social, no, 5 days a week, and social prayers on Wednesdays, I think.
At some point in the last year, there was kind of a live stream of some of a service or singing or the choir at Radley at one point, and I just found I was kind of surprised at myself of wanting to kind of watch it for a little while, and it reminded me, and the reason being, it just reminded that there's nothing that feels more like the community coming together at Radley than chapel, and it's that reminder of being with friends and being with, you know, peers and a bunch of, you know, kids who were in my year group who I have now no idea what they're up to in life, but looking back on them fondly and imagining us all, you know, singing together and sharing in that together is it's a very special feeling of kind of home.
I'm sure very tunefully.
Oh yeah.